More broadly about manufacturing in India, right? This has been one of the hot topics through the year. And in fact, it was expedited by the pandemic. We entered the year in a way that we did not have any manufacturing facilities for basic stuff like PPE kits and even masks for that matter. I mean, it's not just in India, but I think a lot of countries in the world did not have that capacity because China had cornered all of it. While we've been talking about increasing the manufacturing share of the share of manufacturing in Indian GDP, which is about 15%, 16% each year, the Make in India type programs have gone some distance, but they've really not been able to change a lot of things in terms of the quantum of manufacturing, or the let's say the eminent domain of the manufacturing moving to India. But I think the pandemic did its bit as well this year. And the government also launched a program called PLIs, or Production Linked Incentive. This is a very interesting program. It has been launched only for a few sectors, 13 sectors, in fact. Most of them are either important right now, or they will be important or stay relevant for the next decade or so. And what the government has done is fairly simple. What they are saying is, if you manufacture in India, we will give you some percentage between 3 and 6% of your incremental sales happening out of the production from India back to you. And that is the advantage of that is this is not based on metrics like capex or depreciation or exports, etc. It is simply just sales from India. So it doesn't matter whether the sales are happening in India for the Indian market or for global markets. So this opens up opportunities for everyone, including Indian firms and global firms. The incentives are not limited to Indian firms. We've been talking about the whole Atmanirbhar Bharat concept, and I think Ashutosh Muglikar, who will talk after me on this topic, will probably cover that. The idea here is that we are not being insular here. We are saying anyone can come and manufacture in India. It could be a foreign firm also, but we will incentivize them for scale, basically. The government will pay these incentives to only a few sectors and only a few companies in those sectors. So this is not let's say a socialist type scheme where everyone gets a few rupees, but only the champion firms or large firms, which are likely to create an ecosystem in their manufacturing area, will benefit from this program. So the idea is to attract the larger players rather than the smaller ones, but with the assumption that the larger players, once they are in, will of course then provide a trickle down benefit even to the smaller ones. So for example, if you get an auto AEM to relocate to India or expand manufacturing capacity in India, which is already existing, that would also help the auto component sector later on. So there's no incentive for the auto component sector on day one, but they would benefit because the larger players are relocating to India or expanding in India. So that is an incentive. Now, of course, this was backed by some very interesting reforms in the previous months. So last year, I think in September last year, the government changed the taxation rules for corporate for entities. So the corporate tax, or CIT, corporate income tax, is now pretty much in line with a lot of other economies with whom we typically jostle for space in terms of manufacturing. So that was a good enabler in itself. It was actually specifically targeted on the new manufacturing firms, where new firms would have a lower rate of income tax to be paid off. Through this year, the government has also taken up labor reforms, which has caused some furor, but most of that should be live by, let's say, March or April of next year. And those labor reforms will also solve some of the long-standing issues around multiple jurisdictions, multiple types of acts which apply to the manufacturing firms, industrial relations, hiring and firing. So all the needs of the new gig economy, for example. So all of that has been taken care of in these acts. So the enabling infrastructure and the ecosystem which gets created for those 13 sectors would also include some of these other reforms, which are not part of the PLI scheme directly, but they will go a long way in terms of convincing these firms to operate out of India. One interesting part of this program also is that there's a sunset clause. I think all of us have read a lot of literature which says that the government programs in India start but they don't end. And this is a pet peeve for people who are against subsidies, that the government never really kills or ends subsidies. But that's not the case on this one. The program is a time-bound program. The incentives are available only for a few years. The base year could change depending on the sector in which the program is being launched. But let's say up to 5 years, these companies will get the benefits from the PLI directly. And based on that, they have to plan for their capex in that period. So that also means that the incentivization is happening here and now. If a company wants to avail of an incentive on 1st of April, or let's say a financial year starting 1st April 2021, it would have to set up the manufacturing capacities, move the supply lines now, like this quarter, Q4 of this year, which also means that the pandemic-led downturn that we have seen in the first 2 quarters, some of that can also be undone by the efforts of the capex which is happening in these months, because that also will in turn will create jobs, will help sell land, build new buildings, help smaller vendors and so on, help transportation of equipment and all of that. So the PLIs start benefiting the Indian economy indirectly, immediately, like in Q4 of 2021. And then the results accrue to the economy or the GDP starting financial year 2021 itself. I mean, March, 1st April 2021, that is. Now, there are some doubts on whether it will succeed in all the sectors or not. The first PLI was announced for the mobile phone handset manufacturing sector in May, and that has gone quite well. It has attracted 10 global players and 6 Indian players to expand their capacities, and some of that you might have been tracking stock markets. Some of the firms have been a great beneficiary of that already. I mean, in terms of creating wealth. The other 12 sectors, the awards will start happening in the next month, starting in a month or so from here on, and that should continue for practically most of next calendar year. So exciting times ahead. And I had written an article on Swaraj on this topic earlier in December, saying that if this doesn't work, then probably nothing else is going to work. So I just hope that things do fall in place eventually, and manufacturing does take off in India at good scale and in sectors which are sunrise sectors for the future.